specific workshops all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so that you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company's actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door? How can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you? So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comment sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you know, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve, and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school, and the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you were matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle, and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had known, no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here, we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career or what you can accomplish as a person and who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful. And that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you Google search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system and that, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you because it shows, my vulnerability, but two, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world because ultimately people will give you opportunities and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop. Now that I've shared my story with you, I am excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship, and I hope that me being vulnerable with you, maybe it inspired you to be vulnerable with your mentor. Hopefully it gave you the confidence to be comfortable with your mentor, and at minimum, hopefully it just gave you the confidence to be comfortable with yourself and who you are and where you want to be and where you're going. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is the one, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, you are going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 70% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening, and I promise you it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker, because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited to dive into another workshop. We're here to talk about how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. So I know a lot of you are probably, this is maybe your first foray into a professional opportunity. Maybe you've had part-time jobs before, maybe you've had internships, but you're probably relatively inexperienced when it comes to getting that first foot in the door for professional opportunities. And I think one of the big assumptions I had as a student was that my GPA was almost like my rite of passage. It'd be like, do we even need to have this conversation? My GPA is 3.9. Like, can we just bypass this and just you can give me the offer and we don't need to do any of the interview mumbo jumbo. And ultimately, the real world will hit you and you will come to realize that it is a lot more about who you know and not necessarily about your GPA. So fortunately, we've got a great leader with us here today to share her perspective on how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. Mel, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Mel, let's just start off. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how, just a little bit of the genesis of your story as to how you got into where you're at today?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Mel Cummings. I'm the VP of Product and Technology at Fabletics. They're a large active lifestyle retailer. We started online and we also have over 100 stores, which is super fun. My career genesis is pretty nonlinear, which is fairly common for people in like the product part of technology. I graduated from Butler University in 2011 with the degrees in history, international management, and marketing. My first job was in marketing, quickly realized that was not fit for me, which is great for those who do it. It's really important. It just was not my jam. I then jumped into account management with some software companies, eventually landed through an acquisition at Oracle. And I actually had an old boss who was working at Fabletics at the time. And through kind of a series of funny events, he essentially offered me a job with Fabletics remote as the manager of retail ops and project delivery. And that was when we were first starting to open up all of our retail stores. So it was kind of there from the ground up, helped create a lot of the processes, policies, and technology that exists today. And then I've just grown up in the organization since then to, my current leadership role, which has been a lot of fun.
So interesting. So students, for those of you who don't know, account management is kind of not necessarily sales, but more like customer success, making sure that clients that are using your tool or using your software or whatever product you're providing, that they're satisfied and they're happy and things are going well. That's a pretty radical change, going from account management to product. That it really goes to show you had a really strong rapport with this former colleague to be like, hey, I know you've never done anything from a product development standpoint, but hey, do you want to come over here, do product dev with me, and we'll just, make this a great thing? How did that come about? How did that transition occur?
Yeah, it's actually a kind of a funny story. So I was working for Oracle. I was realizing that like super large corporations weren't my particular jam. I didn't like the pace. It was a little too slow for me. And I had the first former colleague, Emily, was wanting me to come do essentially same job, account management at a different company. So I was going through the interview process with them. And one of their final interview steps was to do kind of a fake onboarding of a potential client. And Fabletics was one of the potential clients. And I was like, well, that's been funny. I think my old boss works at Fabletics. Let me text him to get kind of the inside scoop. So I texted him for a little bit about the company and he's like, wait, why are you asking? I was like, well, I'm kind of interviewing for the job. I'm looking apathetically. And he's like, well, if you're looking, you should come work for me. So I got caught in like a very, exciting but rare situation where I got an offer from the company with my friend Emily. My old boss, Dustin, essentially offered me a job that he created for me. And then Oracle actually offered to retain me. So I had to really decide kind of in that moment what I wanted to do career-wise, because I could have it was a good branching moment to focus on something. And in particular, I mentioned earlier, I really like a fast-paced organization. And really everything Dustin was telling me about Fabletics really spoke to that. And it had the ability to influence far beyond my role. And I think, with technology, so much of it is learnable. And in my account management role, I definitely was building the mechanical understanding of how software works because I had to train and teach and help clients adapt to it. So there was definitely a skill set that I could bring to the job, but a lot of on the ground learning as well. But it worked out great. I've been here for almost 10 years.
That's awesome. And the other cool part about it, and I don't know if this was a factor in your decision making, or I don't even know if you had the foresight to know this, but one thing I see a lot of people do, especially when they've been doing a certain type of role or been in a certain type of industry for a long time, is they get pigeonholed into that. Yeah. It's, I have a friend of mine who's been an executive in the digital gaming space. So think online casinos and stuff like that. And he's just like, I don't want to be in this industry anymore. I've seen people ruin their lives and their families' lives because they spent all their money on online poker and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. But because he's been there for 20 years, he can't get out. No one will offer him a job outside of this digital gaming space. And so it creates this really interesting dichotomy. So I don't know if you had the foresight to see of cool, I have skills and have developed a repertoire within the account management space, but the likelihood of me being able to get a product role in this type of fast-paced environment would be super low likely unless I had a friend offering me a job right now. Was that ever part of the decision-making process for you?
Yeah, it super was. The company that I was with before Oracle, it was called Compendium. It was a small startup based here in Indianapolis. What I really loved about it is although my title was account manager, I did a lot of different things behind the scenes, right? So I actually had a lot of substantive things I could put on my resume, like created our entire customer onboarding program and like helped our, customer service team. Like there was more substance than just the title alluded to. And that was what I felt constrained by in Oracle, like the fact that like you just did your job as it was on paper and like nothing else. And I think I was really excited by the opportunity with Fabletics because I could do so many different things. Like there was a job description, but it had been written like, in 2 minutes. Like I knew that the door was kind of open for me to create the role. And I think for me in particular, that was really attractive. And I think it's definitely served me well.
I feel like I've heard that story of like somebody created a role for me very often. I'd be curious to know from your perspective and just like advice.
Yeah.
If you're ever in a scenario where someone says, hey, we want to create a role for you, is it almost like you say, screw it and just jump on board? Like, I feel like I've heard that work out successfully so often. I mean, I guess I've maybe heard of one, like the only times I've ever heard of it not working out was just because the company went under. Like the company just like couldn't survive.
Sure.
But beyond those scenarios,
yeah,
if the company survives, I don't know. I feel like anytime anyone's like, oh yeah, my boss told me that he or she would make a role for me. And so they did. And now like I've, super escalated my career. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. My personal experience has been, I think it's like maybe a 75-25. I think oftentimes if you have the right like trust with that person who's offering you the role, if they really know your strengths and your weaknesses, and they really are passionate about how your strengths are going to amplify them and their teams, I think it has a high success of working out. The times I've seen it not work out is when like usually the hiring person is in some level of like desperation and they use that as a tactic just to like get you in. Like they'll say all the things that make it sound great. So you have to make sure that there's really that high degree of personal trust with the hiring manager, and that they're doing it for both your best intentions and the company's, and it's not like almost like a one-sided recruiter technique to kind of get you in.
That's a great point. That makes me think of like doing an interview and they walk through the workplace and it's like a haunted mansion. They're like, oh, don't go in that closet.
Yeah, you're like, ooh, that's not great. Yeah.
So very interesting. I guess let's talk about just getting your foot in the door, because I think for a lot of students, that can be a pretty nerve-wracking experience. I mean, you're talking about building rapport with people over time, but especially when you don't even have rapport, how do you even get started with just putting yourself out there? Do people like talking to students? Like, are they open to meeting with students? Like, what are from your experience of just putting yourself out there, what are your thoughts or suggestions for students that might have a fear of failure or rejection?
I think it's super fair. We all suffer from that. I mean, I even now still suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's like I've been doing it for longer than I should say, right? So that's not real, but everybody has that sense of like uncertainty. I think for me, I'm a huge advocate of like internships or any type of like structured networking you can do to just like get your feet wet and build up a little bit of confidence. I was really fortunate at Butler. They required 2 internships to graduate. And if I wasn't clear about it, the person who hired me for my first internship is the one who hired me here. Like we kept that professional connection, and he, offered me the job. So I think don't undervalue the opportunities that you're presented during like the college experience, because very often they will open doors for you later, and you never know how that will happen. I think also professionals are super comfortable talking to college kids because we've all been on that side of the table. Like I vividly remember like when I had to do my first interview and like we had these silly little business cards and I like had to walk in with all the bravado. But like those are memorable moments. So I think a lot of us can get empathetic and put ourselves in the student's shoes. And really, if a student shows like genuine curiosity and like really wants to either better understand like a process or a team or a challenge, I think that innate curiosity is usually really well received by whoever you're talking to. And most people are really happy to talk about experiences where they've learned something. So if you can kind of tap into that, usually it can be a really productive conversation both ways.
Post in the comment section. I want to learn your thoughts. What are some go-to questions you would like to ask a recruiter or another professional to show curiosity? Post in the comments. I'd love to know maybe 2 questions that you would like to ask a recruiter or another professional that just would show that you got curiosity, because I love what you're describing and saying, but I think a lot of times, I'll caveat all this. I think sometimes in the collegiate system, it does students a disservice because it's like a very structured, regimented. If you do this, you get that. There's quizzes are on this date. Your final exams are on this date. Bada bing, bada boom. Everything's very like timed out, structured, scheduled, all that sort of stuff. And I think when it comes to internships, I think it's easy for students to kind of fall into this trap of like, cool, I woke up. I showed up to work at 9 o'clock. I left at 5 p.m. I did what was asked of me, and then I went home. And like, they don't build any relationships. They kind of do the bare bone minimum of what the job entails. And then they're like, cool, end of the summer. Do I have an internship offer? And maybe a company has an internship offer, but like, have you really done anything to actually put yourself out there? So I guess maybe the question I have for you is, what did you do to proactively build bonds to show that you weren't just like a dweeby college student just trying to figure it out and like just doing the bare bones minimum? Like, what'd you do to go above and beyond to show that you were truly curious and engaged?
Yeah, that's a great question. Granted, it's been a little while, but from what I remember of my experience, I definitely tried to understand the company and like know who I was talking to a little bit before I like walked in the room. I will say too, this is horrible, but like confidence does sell. So like the more confident you are, the more trust that innately builds with the person. So I think just practicing professional confidence is really important. I was very intentional too about trying to understand the role and like what they were needing from the intern, right? Because like I think, or like whoever, you know, in this situation, like what they were looking for from the interaction, if it's like an informational interview, but it's a skill that will breed you success everywhere if you actually take the time to understand what the person on the other side of the table is like here for. If you can speak to that, it innately drives like higher trust, right? So in my personal situation, I was interviewing for a specific role. They had created an internship to actually try to solve a business problem that like would have actually been very important to alleviating inventory concerns, right? So once I understood that, I really tried to like dive into the question and understand why it was a problem, the volume of the problem. And I think that curiosity about like what they were going through kind of made me a good fit. But it was really just because I wanted to understand like what they would really be getting for like what I would have to be doing. So it's a little bit of that, like you're kind of getting curious for your own sake, but that level of curiosity shows engagement that everybody's usually really receptive to.
Okay, I love that. I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here because I've heard this before, and I don't actually subscribe to this style, but I've seen this happen before where the question is, what is the balance of the right amount of questions to ask? Because I've seen some leaders, and I don't think this is good leadership, but I've seen it happen before where they get to a point because they're so busy in their own BS of whatever they've got going on in their day-to-day tactical work that like, if you hit a threshold of too many questions, they'll be like, hey, I need you to just figure this out and like make it happen. And I don't have time to answer these questions. So I guess, how do you go about deciphering what is the most important questions to ask and making sure that they're intentional questions? By the way, I don't actually subscribe to that, but I do recognize like if you ask too many questions, it can feel like your boss is almost doing your job for you and like potentially handholding you too much. And then it goes from curiosity into incompetence.
Right.
How do you strike that balance? Does that question make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I think a lot of it comes down to like, I would say maybe 2 to 3 things. One, you do have to prioritize your questions. And I think structuring your questions in ways that are like open-ended and like help you derive more information is really where you should start. If you're ever asking like a yes or no question, like you're probably asking the wrong question, because rarely is that what you actually need to know. You need to understand the underlying kind of mechanics of the problem or the context. So I would always say prioritize up front. I'm a big fan of like after a couple of questions doing like a little vibe check, like, hey, I have a few more, are you good? And like usually can read the body language. Even if they say they're good and you read the body language and they're not, ask just one more easy one, right? Like there's a little bit of like this is an opportunity for you to develop your like interpersonal skills as well in terms of how to get what you need out of the other person. So like it should not just be like a blanket show up with your 20 and read through the 20. Like I think the best conversations are when it's a back and forth. And hopefully if you've asked really good questions up front, you're going to get better answers, and some of your other questions hopefully become redundant.
Love that. That's so funny. There's nothing says I don't have time for more questions like eyes darting. Like yeah, for sure. I got more time. Yeah. Whatever. Ask some questions quickly. Go. Eyes are darting. You're like, cool. You are definitely not communicating that you've got more time for questions. But no, I really do like that, and I think you bring up a great point of not asking yes or no questions, because rarely, so true. One other thing I personally subscribe to is when asking questions about like where things are going. Because I think to be very clear, I think most middle managers suck at communication when it comes to like, what are we trying to do here? Like, where are we going? Like, I think they often just say, I need you to do just this task. And if you're like, cool, this task will help us achieve what outcome? Sometimes I can get frustrated with the description of that because they assume that you know. One thing I subscribe to doing is being like, cool, so you want me to do this because ultimately this will help us achieve this. Is that correct? Am I like on the like presupposing the end outcome of your activity? And if it's wrong, great, let them correct you. But then that almost like by presupposing the end outcome, they'll confirm or deny whatever assumption you have about it. And that is really critical, because nothing is more frustrating than working really, really hard on something, ultimately for your boss to be like, what the heck have you been working on for the last month? Jeez, like I thought I was clear. You do this task so that it achieves this thing. And you're like, well, I thought it was going to this outcome, not this outcome. And yeah. So anyways, that's one just suggestion I put in there, is like presupposing the outcome and letting them correct you if you're wrong.
Absolutely true. And I think any good leader should feel comfortable, like they should be able to connect the work that you're doing to the larger mission. And if they can't, like even if you're an intern, if you're unpaid, like you should feel comfortable questioning that, because like everybody's time's valuable. And if like this isn't the most important thing you could be doing, it's just how can we shift it into something that is more impactful?
No, I love it. Okay, so you brought this component up before, and I want to touch on it again, because I think this is like when students heard this, they were like, whoa, practice confidence.
Yeah.
What do you do to practice confidence? I guess maybe let me ask the students a question. Post in the comment section, what do you do to practice confidence as you prepare for any big meeting, or putting yourself out there, or reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn, or giving them a call, or whatever? When you're reaching out to somebody and you maybe don't know them that well, or you're just trying to, build a relationship, what do you do to practice confidence? But Mel, same to you. What do you do to practice confidence? How do you get yourself in the zone to be like, cool, I've got this?
Yeah, great question. I do a couple things. First, I will say, like, you dress for the job you want. I've done that my entire career. And granted, I'm dressed super down today, but I work now for a tech company, so it's on brand. But like, I will even do this still at work, right? If I have to present at like an all company meeting, or I have a tough, like, I know I have a tough like one-on-one, I will like dress up a little bit, because it just makes me feel like I'm more in control, and it kind of instinctually builds your confidence. It's like a subtle thing you can do in the morning. If I need to, sometimes I'll like talk to like a friend or a good coworker and like pump myself up about it. Like, all right, gotta do this thing. It's gonna be tough. Like, I'm gonna jam through it. And like, just sometimes like saying it that you're gonna have a positive outcome, just like manifests it a little bit for you, which I think is real. And then I also think there's just a piece of like, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? Like every once in a while I'll be like, if this person doesn't like me, is the world over? Like, probably not. Very rarely is one situation going to make or break your entire career, job, life experience. So I've definitely taken that to heart of like, the worst thing that can possibly happen is really not that bad, and I'll still sleep fine. So like, let's not create anxiety about this moment.
I love that. And, talking to your friends, putting it out there, I think is so powerful, because by doing that, you are now putting yourself into an accountability, almost like identity crisis if you don't do it. And there's some fun psychological tips and tricks that you can do. But if you tell other people that you're going to do this thing, you now kind of have to do it because you've told other people. I think a lot of people don't follow through on whatever commitment, whether it be they're trying to lose weight, or they're trying to read a book or learn a skill or whatever. If they don't tell anybody it, Well, they can have a bunch of cheat days, or they can, not do it. And if no one else knows that that's what they're trying to do, then, oh, well, they really fail? No one knew that they were even trying in the first place. So if you tell people, I think that's really powerful. I also am a big, big fan of practicing the conversation and the ideal outcome ahead of time. I think I've mentioned this in like earlier portions of our workshops where I'll describe whether it be a basketball player, they'll play through their mind the clock going down 3, 2, 1 and getting that shot up, like in making the shot in the final second, like thousands of times in their head. And in business, we can do the exact same thing. I think we can envision how the conversation is going to go, play out what a successful outcome looks like, play out what a unsuccessful outcome looks like, how do we respond in those scenarios, and almost like mentally get us ready to handle all scenarios. And in my experience, when I've done that, like 98% of the time, it works out in the most positive way possible because I was ready for any sort of thing that they could throw at me.
Yeah, it's super true. I mean, there's one book I highly recommend called Peak Performance. It really talks about the importance of balancing like rest with pushing yourself and working really hard. But it talks about that, like just manifesting and really like seeing that outcome, practicing that outcome. Like top athletes, like that's totally part of their regimen, especially like in a pregame ritual or something like that.
Let's talk about, I want to bring up this concept of informational interviews real quick. I think that's something that students can leverage, but I don't know if it's as popular, but I think it's something that can be really, really powerful. And that's just this concept of reaching out to a professional that's doing work that you're genuinely interested in and seeing if they'd be open to having a quick 15, 30-minute chat with you, just to share with you about their experiences. What are your thoughts on informational interviews? And if you are an advocate for them, how do you suggest students go about reaching out to professionals for setting those up?
No, I'm a huge fan of them. I've done quite a few, especially even just in the last like year or two. I think they're most impactful when the person genuinely wants like the job or like a very adjacent job, and they're trying to understand. It's probably two things. There's a little bit of they're trying to understand like what's the day in and day out of the job, to understand if they like the pace of the job. But I think more importantly, there's an opportunity to understand if like your innate strengths and like things you're interested in align with the job, right? So like, for example, when I go through hiring, I have like a pretty like comfortable spiel I give people on like, if you like these types of things, you're going to love this job. If you don't like these types of things, you're not going to love this job. I'm more than happy to share that with like a prospective student, because I think understanding those mechanical things about a role is super, super important. There's tons of folks that I went to school with who now are in roles. They're like, yeah, I really don't love this, because they didn't understand what like the end job was. Studying for it was great, but actually doing the end thing, like I have a bunch of friends who are pharmacists. Not all of them really love being like, CVS pharmacists. So this is not what I signed up for, right? But they didn't understand mechanically enough about what that would look like until they were too far into the program.
Man, that's so funny and so true. Pharmacy is like one of those, nothing against being a pharmacist. I think pharmacist is great, but I just remember in high school, they really advertised as hard as like very steady income, like very safe and reliable. If you're looking for safety and reliability, accounting or pharmacy, that's the way to go. Right. And I mean, obviously I'm an entrepreneur, so, that I went obviously a very different path for all those sorts of things, but I could imagine that being an industry that's ripe for people being like, dang, I was maybe thinking it might be a little more exciting or a little bit more.
Yeah, like if you can get into clinical, it's much more dynamic. But like if you choose the path of retail pharmacy, it's not dynamic, right? And some people want something more dynamic, and some people love the non-dynamic nature. So it's right, but that's about like understanding truly what the job needs from you and knowing that before you kind of get committed.
I like it. I think that makes sense. I think another really interesting point about the informational interview is also not just learning about the role itself, but reaching out to people at different companies. Because being a product manager at Fabletics is probably very different from being a product manager at Amazon, or being a product manager at Google, or being a product manager at Coinbase, or of whatever company that you're interested in being a product manager at. So I'm just using product management as just an idea. But if you're a student and you're like, gosh, I would love to get in, I want to be an account executive, I want to be a business development rep, I want to be a marketing professional, I want to be whatever it is that you're interested in doing. reaching out to multiple people at different types of companies, because culturally they're very, very different. And, you know, you might discover one cultural dynamic that's a little more conducive to your personality and lifestyle than others.
I think so. Yeah. And I think it's also even feeling comfortable asking the people you're talking to, like, hey, what companies are very different than yours? Like, how are they different? To even maybe suggest that next place to talk to. Usually, if you've been in the industry for 5-10 years, you have a decent beat on that. And that could just be an additional information that is helpful to learn about.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I think you can start with LinkedIn. I talk to the students a lot about LinkedIn and just, you know, reaching out. At the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen? They don't respond or they say no, whatever. Put it out there. They might say yes. And if they say yes, fantastic. You've got a 15 or 30-minute meeting on the books with someone who's doing the work that you want to do. And I think coming in with not an expectation of this person's going to ultimately help me get this job, but instead coming in from a perspective of curiosity is probably the most critical aspect to just that outreach. Because if you come in with the expectation they're going to give you a job, probably not going to work out. But like if you show genuine curiosity, most companies have a pretty hefty referral bonus for bringing in employees. If they like you and they think you're curious about the job and that you'd be a good fit at the company, oh, you don't even need to ask them. They will proactively refer you in because they stand to make maybe a few grand from being that referral partner to the organization because they brought you in versus having them hire an outside recruiter to hire.
Yeah, I think that's super true. And I think just like understanding that you're always on a quest to learn, right? Like I think, you know, just because you're in college, like learning doesn't end. I think sometimes it's even more important to like keep that curiosity and learning as you leave college. Like this is just another aspect of that you're kind of practicing.
All right, let me ask the students one last question. This is like a commitment one, but who are 10 people that you can reach out to on LinkedIn by the end of this week that you are, you know, what is a step that you are willing to commit to? I guess I've kind of cheated and given you the step that I want you to commit to, which is reaching out to 10 people on LinkedIn. But like, what is a step that you can commit to get yourself further towards, you know, better understanding the ideal career path you want to pursue? Post in the comment section. I love to learn more. Mel, this has been great. This has been a really great workshop. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. I'm like looking at my questions. I don't know if I covered all of them, but I feel like this conversation naturally hit and ebbed and flowed in so many different ways. And I thought you've done such a really good job of highlighting some really great points about what students should be thinking about when getting their foot in the door for professional opportunities. On a final note, how can students learn more about you? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you're welcome to reach me. I'm MELANIE Cummings on LinkedIn. You'll find me as an employee at Fabletics. And yeah, I'm happy to, you know, be reached out to. I will say, you know, some of the outreach can be long tail. If I don't respond right away, it's super not personal. I'm just bad at LinkedIn. But I think that that's probably common for folks in the industry, especially running into times like cyber. So should be fun.
Amazing. Well, Mel, thank you so much for being on this workshop. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day.